Whoa, what if you took a shape and displaced it using an individual color channel from an image and then gave the shape enough subdivisions to actually show a little bit of definition, flipped it up on its back, and then use a replace material to give it the same color that you're using to displace, and then copy that 2 more times for the other channels, setting the replace material to the corresponding colors, and then position the red and the blue left and right of the green. You'd pretty much have a fully functional RGB parade right here inside of Fusion's 3D working space. So I thought this would be a cool idea for an effect that you could just drag onto your footage straight from the edit page to show the color breakdown of your shot. Maybe you do like color tutorials or like film breakdowns, things like that. I went ahead and designed a RGB parade as well as a vector scope. Let me go ahead and show you how each of them work. All right, so if you follow the link in the description, you'll find this DRFX file. And if you're on Resolve 17.2 or higher, when you double click, it'll ask you to install and it'll appear over here under your generators folder, Matt McCool, and then scopes. And there are 3 effects. So let's quickly run through them. I'm going to start with the vector scope first. So if I drop this right over my shot like this, you can see it produces this nice vector scope right over here. And in the inspector, we have a few different options for adjusting how the whole thing looks. So there are 2 main styles. The colorful is the default, but you can also switch this to black. And you can see when we do that, the signal mask becomes colorful and it actually represents the colors that it's also showing. So whenever it's set to color, you also have this brightness control right here. So if you want the colors to be a little bit, more dull or brighter, you can do that right here. When it's set to black, this doesn't do anything. And then you also have the opacity, and you'll notice if this is slightly transparent like this, it'll actually take the footage and blur it really nice. And the colorful option also has this kind of blurry effect here. And you can also adjust the color of everything like this. If you, for some reason, don't want to show anything at all, you can just drop all 4 of these channels to 0, and you'll just have a very minimal, disc with the signal mask in the very center. And then I went ahead and included separate media transform controls right here. The reason I did this is because if, for example, if you wanted to, position your footage so it's not full screen, you will notice that the vector scope actually reads this entire canvas. So like if I move this over here, notice how the vector scope is actually getting less dense because it's actually reading the entire frame. So if you want to produce that kind of layout, there are separate media transform controls inside the template itself. And I went ahead and put the pivot controls in here too, because I think this is a little more intuitive. So for example, if I type in 0 on the X, now whenever I scale down, it'll always snap to the left edge of the frame right here. So it makes it very easy to make a layout kind of like this. And you can also adjust the signal size, although I think the default should work for most situations. You don't want to go too high because eventually you will run into the edge of the frame there. So I went ahead and put that in there just in case you're working with some particularly low saturated footage. Yeah, so you can kind of adjust the layout. I'm going to go ahead and increase the size all the way back up. And if we play this from the very beginning, you can see I put in a little bit of animation, just kind of rotates into place. And then it has the same kind of animation in reverse at the very end, like that. And this will also dynamically adjust depending on how long you make the effect. So that's the vector scope. Now let's take a look at the RGB parade. So this one actually looks the most similar to the real RGB parade. I tried to make it look as close to this as possible. It's even the same yellow color right here. But over here under the parade controls, you can actually change the color, or you can completely turn off the overlay and just have the parades themselves. Or if this is turned on, you can also adjust the opacity of the lines independently. Pretty easy, pretty intuitive. And just like the real parade, you know how there's like this slider right here, which will increase the intensity, I guess, of the parades. I put in the same thing here, and what's cool about this is it'll also kind of highlight white where the image is the most dense. And my favorite control is probably the smoothness slider right here. So if you're really going for more of like a minimal look, you can kind of increase that smoothness. You'll probably also want to increase the parade like this. And so there's the parades by themselves. These also kind of animate one channel up at a time like that. And of course, this whole thing can move. You can change the size. You can also turn on the fusion overlay in this little drop-down menu. And this will let you just grab the actual control point if this is easier for you and just kind of position this wherever you need it. Same with the footage. You can grab the main frame on the outside and kind of position your frame wherever you want. So it's pretty customizable. You can get a lot of different kind of layouts with this. Now you'll notice I also added a multi-scope which combines both of these. And the reason I did that is because if you stack the separate ones like this, they will actually read each other. So you can see if I move the RGB parade, the vector scope is also reading that parade. So it's going to scale and change as we move this. And if this were, flip-flopped like this, then now whenever I move the vector scope around, the RGB parades are also reading that. So if you want to show both, you can use the multi-scope right here. And this just combines the functionality of both, and you have separate little drop-down menus for each of them. Everything is identical, so you can still, change the style. And these also animate the exact same way in the beginning and the end of the effect. So anyway, I just thought this was an interesting way of showcasing color. Again, you can download and support me using the link below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.